that's straight and bright. By the light of the Word.
Today on Light of the Word with Pastor Ray.
Know this: God always sees you for who you will be, not who you are at this very moment. He doesn't look into your faults and your fears and your failings. He looks and he sees you for what you're going to be, and that's what he identifies you at. Here's Gideon. Gideon doesn't know what's in him. God's bringing it out of him, and God's doing the same for us as he teaches us through this chapter. I want to bring out the greatness that is within you.
Open your heart to us, Lord, so we can know your word. We come before you, Jesus. Speak to our hearts as we discover your love for us. How wide, how deep, how far. Pour into us so we can learn to follow. One surrender at a time. You have made the way for us to know you. A path that's straight and bright.
We are so overwhelmed by daily, mundane tasks that we think we are not doing anything important for God. Today, Pastor Ray will encourage you to open your heart to God and to listen to what He tells you. You have to know who Jesus is in order to be able to go and do what He wants you to do. How do you know who Jesus is? By reading and studying God's Word. God has great things planned for you. You just have to be willing. Well, let's join Pastor Ray in the book of Judges chapter 6 for today's edition of Light of the Word.
God promises you victory in every spiritual thing in your life. The physical things can happen and hurt in a fallen world, but anything to do with the spiritual promises of God, He promises you. Love, joy, peace, faith, hope. You name the spiritual fruit, and He promises it to you. But there's an evil one out there who wants to oppress, and he's trying to take this away from us. And this is the picture that he develops for us as we look at the life of Gideon. And so let's move on to verse 12. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said to him, "The Lord is with you, you mighty man of valor." So here's Gideon. He's hiding in the shadows. He's hiding in the shadows at night, and God shows up and says, "Oh, there you are, you mighty man of valor. You mighty man of valor." Know this: God always sees you for who you will be, not who you are at this very moment. He doesn't look into your faults and your fears and your failings. He looks and he sees you for what you're going to be, and that's what he identifies you at. Here's Gideon. Gideon doesn't know what's in him. God's bringing it out of him, and God's doing the same for us as he teaches us through this chapter. I want to bring out the greatness that is within you, great things for the things of the Lord. And I'm not going name it, claim it. I'm talking about the things of the Lord. And oh, the day that we live in, how we need to be and have great men and women of valor in our life and in our land. Verse 12 again, and the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said, "The Lord is with you, you mighty man of valor." When is Gideon the mighty man of valor? When the Lord is with him. And when the Lord is with us, that is when we come into this strength, and that's when we are these mighty people of God. And I want you to see this, though. What's Gideon doing? It would be the same. He's working at the shop. He's cutting the grass. He's doing the dishes. Gideon is doing a mundane, menial job. He's breaking husk from wheat kernels in a wine press. He's doing an everyday task that's just mundane. And yet God could speak to him. And God could break through what he was doing in his mundane life. And I think sometimes we make a fault in ourselves of, God's only going to speak to me in my morning devotion. God's only going to speak to me in a special way in a church service. Or you know what, I need to get away to a retreat because that's where God's going to speak. And he does. But I want to tell you, and I want all of us to glean and apply in our lives, I'll speak to you every day and every moment. I'll speak to you on the drive to work. I'll speak to you in the workplace. I'll speak to you on your morning run, your evening workout. If you will allow yourself to have ears to hear, you will hear me speak and say something. And here's Gideon, God breaking through the mundane task and speaks to him, calls him the mighty man of God. Verse 13, Gideon said to him, "Oh, my Lord, if the Lord is with us, why then has all this happened to us? And where are all his miracles?" He doesn't know this is Jesus. He doesn't know this is God yet. "Which our fathers told us about, saying, did not the Lord bring us up from Egypt? But now the Lord has forsaken us and delivered us into the hands of the Midianites." Ever sound familiar? Do you notice if? Do you notice why? Do you notice the word where? Do you notice the word but? Do you notice the word forsaken? Gideon said to him, "Oh, my Lord, if the Lord is with us, why then has all this happened to us? Where are his miracles which our fathers told us about? Did not the Lord bring us up from Egypt? But now the Lord has forsaken us." It's hard. Gideon has, what's his age? 17? 27, 37, 47. He's tasted and seen that the Lord is good. He's lived possibly as long, at least possibly upwards of 40 years in prosperity. Whether it's 30 or 20 or 10, he knows what it tastes and what it is, the goodness of God. And now here he is, and it's easy for him to come and go, ah. And we can come to this place and we can go, I once walked in greatness. I was once close to the Lord. I was so into his word. I was so into prayer. I was so into the works of ministry and these things. But then something got in there. Something interrupted me. Something started to disrupt that. And now here I find myself in this place of failing. I find myself in this place of being oppressed. I find myself in this place of even a bondage. And you know what we can say to ourselves? He'll never change. I failed him. Could he ever come and forgive me? Verse 14. Then the Lord turned to him and said, Israel is in this place. Gideon's part of Israel. They're in this place because they've forsaken the Lord. They're the ones who turned, as we studied in verse 1. Then the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord. They're in this situation because of their choice. They're in this situation because of their action. And we could easily go, man, God's not in this. God's never going to take me out of this. I put myself in this problem. I've caused this problem, and therefore I'm in it. But here's what God will always speak to us. Then the Lord turned to him and said, Go in this might of yours, and you shall save Israel from the hand of the Midians. Have I not sent you? I like this, and if you see this, God doesn't respond. Gideon asked these questions of an if and a why and a where and a how, and God doesn't respond. He just simply says, Then the Lord turned and go in this might. You know, God's not the responder. God will never be the responder. God doesn't even go and address this with Gideon. He just says, Gideon, you and this nation are in a situation. You're in a desperate situation. And if you are in a desperate situation, and I know many of you are, God doesn't sit and spend time. Let's talk about the past. Let's pull up some psychology and dig up your past and find out what happened in the past. And let's determine this past. God always says, I understand your past. I understand the failing. I understand maybe you are hurt. I understand the things that have hurt you. And he doesn't diminish that, and he doesn't take away that hurt what happened to you or that failing. He doesn't dig it up and then beat us with it again. But what he does is he says, what I have for you is the path to victory right now. Rise up and let's go take it. The more you analyze, you'll become in this paralysis of analysis. And we sit there and we look and we evaluate the failings and what we did wrong. God just says, man, just get up, let's go. Let's go, mighty man. Let's go, this might of yours, and let's go save Israel from the hand of the Midianites. Have I not sent you? And here he is. I'm not going to respond. And I think we live in a time, in a country where people want us to respond. How can God allow this? Why would God say this? We don't agree with God and this principle. And we're watching laws being passed. We're watching caucuses being held. We're watching special sessions. And people are literally, though they're not calling God out, they're calling his people out. And they're making a point about that's narrow-minded, or that's cruel, or that's unloving. And they come and they challenge, you know what? And God doesn't respond. God doesn't sit and go, well, let me explain what I meant by this. God is seated on the throne, and God's not moved at all. God said, this is my word. This is what I said. And my word is always for my glory and your good. But I'm not a responder. And here Gideon is. He's asking an if and a why and a where and a how and all these things, and God doesn't respond at all. God just goes and says, let's get up and go, because God's no responder. And because if he did respond, he would just respond as he did to Job back there. As why has this happened? All the heartbreak that happened to Job. And what does God say? Where were you? Where were you when I formed the earth? Where were you when I laid the foundations? Where were you when I created the seas and the heavens and everything under? You weren't even born. What could you possibly know and understand of my greatness and my intent? I'm reminded that when I was in Israel, there was a young man. He had just graduated college. Played football for the college team there. I didn't know it at the time that I actually watched him on television playing in, I think it was the Sugar Bowl or something, and he was playing Penn State. And I remember watching that game. I didn't know that was him, that he was the actual quarterback. God had got hold of him. God was doing a great work in him. God ended up, he went and played arena football, and he would give his testimony after the game, and just a great testimony. But I was meeting him at the very beginning of his ministry life. Now he pastors somewhere. I've lost track of where he is. But I love the story that he shared. And he was at the university, a secular university, and he was in a class. I mean, this was like that movie, God's Not Dead, if you saw the first one, the way that teacher attacks that student and just belittles him, and it's a great movie if you ever get a chance to see it. Belittles him, mocks him, and he has to make a decision if he's going to stand for Christ or just roll with it. And so the teacher continually takes sport of mocking him in the classroom. And he said, so literally one day the teacher came in with an egg, and he said, so who here thinks that if I drop this egg, it will splatter into 1,000 pieces? And the whole class says, I do. He goes, well, let's do this. I'm going to take this egg and drop it. And we're going to say, God, if you're real, let this egg drop and not break. He goes, will that prove if there's truly a God in heaven? Because he won't let this break, because he's going to defend himself. And he's going to prove that he's real. And I forget the young man's name, and let's just say his name was Joey. And he goes, what do you think of that, Joey? Joey goes, I like it. I like that a lot. Let's do this. He's like, really? The teacher? Really? He goes, yeah, just one request. He goes, can I pray before you drop that egg? Can I pray to my God before you drop that egg? And the teacher's like, yeah, sure. And so Joey stands up. So the teacher's in the front with the egg, and Joey stands up, and Joey says, dear God, I pray that when Mr. So-and-so drops this egg, I pray, Lord, that it shatters into 1,000 pieces. And then, Lord, I pray that your spirit comes down and strikes him dead, and that he falls on top of that mess of eggs and dies right there for mocking you. In your name, amen. And he says, the teacher literally looked at him, looked at the egg, looked at him, opened the drawer, put the egg in the drawer, closed the drawer, and said, class dismissed. That's a true story. God responds to no man. God sits on the throne. He's immovable. He's in a fixed position, and his eyes are fixed on you. If he was moving and swayed, he'd never be able to keep his eyes on where you're at. But he's on the throne, and he can see you, and he knows you're on page 20. He knows what page 21 is coming. He knows what page 40, 50, and 80, all the way to the last day of your life, because he's the Alpha and the Omega, and he's everything in between. And he speaks to Gideon here. Verse 14, then the Lord turned to him and said, go in this might of yours. He doesn't answer his challenges. He's just giving him the path to victory, and he's saying that to us. And you shall save Israel from the hand of the Midianites. Have I not sent you? So verse 15, so he said to him, O my Lord, how can I save Israel? Indeed, my clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my father's house. And so here Gideon comes with a list of why he can't be used, not realizing it's the perfect reason why he can be used and why you can be used and why God will do great things with you. 1 Corinthians 1, verse 26 through 29, for you see your calling, brethren, that not many wise according to the flesh, not many mighty, not many noble are called, but God has chosen the foolish things of the world to put to shame the wise. And God has chosen the weak things of the world to put to shame the things which are mighty, and the base things of the world are the things which are despised God has chosen, and the things which are not to bring to nothing the things that are, that no flesh should glory in his presence. Literally saying the Gideon, and it's this verse is literally 1 Corinthians chapter 1. You're the perfect man. You are the weakest. You're the perfect person that I have for this job. I remember talking to a pastor, and he was kind of giving me, I think he was talking down on to me a little bit. He was talking about might and the power and the calling of pastoral ministry and the choosing and God picking the man. And he went on this thing, and he goes and he looks at me, and I go, I think we take ourselves a little too much for ourselves, because 1 Corinthians 1 says God's looking for the weak things. God's looking for the foolish things, that he might confound the wise. I said, it's literally, God says, all right, I want to do a work. I want to do a work. I'm not going to use myself as an example. I want to do a work in Brooklyn. I want to do a work in Brooklyn Park. I want my word to go. I love my word. And I love the people of Brooklyn Park. And I want them to know me. I want them to see my glory. And I want them to know my love. I'm going to do a work in Brooklyn Park. I got to find the most weakest and foolish things I can. Oh, there's Chris and Amy. There's Matt and Casey. Perfect. I found my weakest and foolish things. If you don't want to do ministry here, all you have to say to me is, Pastor, I am gifted and talented and anointed of the Lord. What would you like me to do? And I will say, nothing. The weak and the foolish. Anybody here qualify? Everyone here qualifies. And God makes it, there is no reasoning or excuse that we could ever give before him, because we say, but see, I'm not a good speaker. God said, perfect. Well, see, I don't know my Bible well. Perfect. Because then when you pull these verses out, people go, where'd that come from? God. And I remember I went to Bible college. I went to Bible college because I thought I was going to be something. And I thought I had to get equipped. I thought I had to get, I'm going to go to Bible college. I'm going to learn the word. I'm going to come on, and I'm going to preach, and I'm going to evangelize. I'm going to be God's mighty man. So I go to Bible college, and I was studying deeply, through those periods, and I finished off in Bible college, and kind of what you learn as you learn this word more is just how weak and foolish you are. And when you look up and you see the mighty, immovable God seated on the throne, you realize just how weak and foolish you really are. And I remember coming back from Bible college, and Pastor Malcolm, he's after service, he goes, so what are you going to do next, Ray? I go, well, I don't know. I go, I have no clue. I was so sure before I left, now I know nothing. I don't know what to do. I'm just waiting on the Lord. And I remember his words. He goes, perfect. He goes, God can use you now. And that's all it is. The willingness, as we studied in chapter 5 and from the story of Judges chapter 4, God's just looking for the willing. Those who will willingly offer himself. He said, great, I'll use that. Let's go. Let's go do this. In verse 16, we'll just end there in verse 16 today. So he said to him, O my Lord, how can I save Israel? Verse 15, indeed my clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my father's house. And the Lord said to him, surely I will be with you, and you shall defeat the Midianites as one man. And the Lord said to him, Gideon's got ears to hear. It's all we need to have, ears to hear. And so God speaks. God doesn't waste time reflecting on the past. He doesn't go and puts in this paralysis of analysis. He just gets in. Surely I will be with you, and you shall defeat the Midian. That's all that he needs to hear. As long as he doesn't miss, this is who I am. We start at the throne, Gideon, and I'm laying and establishing a foundation in your life for spiritual victories. And we all need them. Our marriages need them. Our kids need them. Our families need them. And I look and I say, may I not miss this God who's so powerful that he can part a sea with a shepherd's staff. That's who my God is. A God who can slay a giant with a little boy. A God who can kill 1,000 Philistines with the jawbone of an ass. And a God who can feed 5,000 with a few loaves and a few fishes. And this, I don't miss you. I see you seated on the throne. And I know that you have the might and the power to do these things.
You have made the way for us to know you, a path that's straight and bright.
We've loved walking through the book of Judges with you today on Light of the Word. We hope that today's message has reminded you of the great love your Creator has for you and how much He desires to be a part of your life. As you've been listening to Pastor Ray's message today, you may have found there's some questions you'd like answered. We'd love the opportunity to answer them as best as we can. So please send us an email at mail@ccaac.org. Let us know, too, how we can be lifting you up in prayer. That email address again is mail@ccaac.org. Light of the Word is created and produced from the services of Pastor Ray Bolus at Calvary Chapel of Anne Arundel County, Maryland. And we'd love for you to learn more about who we are and why we're sharing the gospel message. Visit our website at ccaac.org. And while you're there, sign up for our weekly newsletter and connect with us on Facebook or Twitter. You'll also discover a number of resources available to help you study the Bible and grow in your relationship with the Lord. That website again is ccaac.org. Thanks for joining us today. Our time with you has come to a close, but we encourage you to continue reading in the book of Judges. We hope you'll join us again here on Light of the Word, illuminating the heart of God.
You have made